Okay, it says we're recording. All right.
Yay!
Today, I have the pleasure of having Chantal on here. And now you're carnivore, but you were actually keto for like over a decade, weren't you? And what was it actually at the time that made you think that this was the solution or that you were doing the right thing?
Well, Jonathan, I started keto actually 11 years ago because I had very terrible migraines. They were actually debilitating. And it actually affected my life to such an extent that I couldn't even hold down a job. So I decided that I needed to do something, and medication wasn't working. And so I looked into my eating, and I never really ate that badly because I was always quite a health freak. But I read up about this keto diet, and actually I looked. I mean, Instagram wasn't that really big at that time, but Facebook was, and there was this influencer called Maria Emmerich, and she was big into keto, and she posted all these recipes about how you can how you can add foods to your diet, but not by changing much. So she create these most amazing desserts with like sweeteners and cakes. And I thought, well, I do have a bit of a sweet tooth, so let me try this keto diet. And to be honest, in South Africa we grew up with a lot of meat, so it wasn't really hard for me to change. And I never really ate much bread anyway, so I started with this keto diet. And to be honest, during pregnancy, I didn't really stick to it that well, but I wasn't eating unhealthy either. And so I continued with it for many years. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I got back from a trip from the US, and I'd been eating all these keto foods from Whole Foods, like keto bread and keto bars. And they have such a wide selection there. And of course, they don't have it in South Africa. So you're tempted by all these new foods because they're all new. So I started with that. And then when I got home, my skin just started breaking out very, very badly. But before that, I also had psoriasis, but that used to come and go. But it got so bad to a point that nothing I would do would clear it. And I went on like parasite medication and all these sorts of tried different face creams. I spent like hundreds of dollars on new face products, and went to dermatologists. They advised like these dermatological creams, and nothing fixed it. And then at the beginning of the year, oh, sorry, before that, I also tried vegan, and that just made it worse. I mean, that was just out of control, and I couldn't understand why, because I was eating so healthy. I was eating all these plant foods and, all these like pulses, and I thought, what am I actually doing wrong? And then it wasn't until this year, in the beginning of the year, that I thought I saw a reel over Christmas about the carnivore diet and how much it had healed people. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to try this diet. So I tried it, and I felt amazing. I remember the third day, I was like, you just feel so happy. And even though, like, I mean, my husband, we live on a wine farm. So my husband loves his wine, and he's always like, do you want a glass of wine? Oh, you used to be so much fun when you drank, and, things like that. So, I mean, I did have a glass of wine over Easter, and you can actually feel, it's amazing. You can just feel such a difference when you've been healthy for so long and you have that one drink, how it affects you. It affects you like 10 times more than what it would have previously. And you think that you're being so healthy now that a drink wouldn't affect you, but it actually does. And I thought to myself, it's not actually worth stepping out of the carnivore diet just to have this one pleasure, because it makes you feel so terrible. And I mean, I actually wanted to ask you, Jonathan, have you ever sort of like stepped out of the carnivore eating plan since you've been a carnivore? Because you've been it for quite a while now. Have you ever like strayed or like thought, I feel great now, I think I'm going to try that piece of bread or that potato? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, there's definitely something to what you said, first of all, right? I feel like a lot of people say that when they've been doing this and they feel how good they can actually feel and like just being their best self, right? If you ever try doing something else, you're like, you know what? I don't actually want that because I feel so good doing the thing I was
Yeah.
doing. That why would I even want that stuff? Even though you get that like short-term pleasure of it, it's like the the consequences are just so bad. Nah, it's not worth it. And yeah, I have actually, in the beginning, I'm 20 months in now about, but in the beginning, I did have two experiences, like going off the plan, I guess, which was all the way in the beginning. I was living in the UK, right? And
Yeah.
my dad came over to visit. And I had told him about all the stuff I was doing and all that, but I thought, oh, what's the worst that can happen? I would be making everything so boring. Felt the social pressure, right, in the beginning, where I didn't want to make this trip like difficult and all that stuff. We had to like having to spend time on whatever, like finding something that works for me. So yeah, I ended up eating like him, the typical English breakfast, right? You get some toast and potatoes and yeah. And also we did have alcohol as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, it hits like a truck. Uh, and of course, yeah, I mean, it felt good in the moment, but it didn't take very long actually for me to feel very, like, really, really awful. Like, I got constipated again. I felt my old self, if you want to call it that, like the depression and all
Yeah.
that come back. And it took quite a while to go away. And yeah, I had that experience, which after that one, I just decided for myself, you know what? This just confirms to me this is what I'm going to do. And from now on, I'm not going to care what others think of this thing I'm doing. I'm doing this for myself, and whatever they think, that's their problem, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the other experience I had with it was when I went back home for Christmas to Norway. We went to eat at my grandma's house, and she called me like a million times to check on me, like, am I doing everything right? Yeah, I'm using
Shame.
real butter, not the margarine, and
Shame.
all that stuff. And yeah, I said, yeah, you're doing everything right. I'm looking forward to coming over. And then when we sit down to have the meal, I have a bite and I just turn over to her and I say, Grandma, did you by any chance put some black pepper in this? Because I could feel the tingling and a strange sensation in my mouth. And
Yeah.
she just went, "Oh no, Jonathan, what have I done?" Like,
Shame.
and honestly, like I just said to her, you know what? Don't worry about it. It's just a little bit. It's gonna be fine. Like, what could be the worst that happens? It's like a tiny bite I had, and I honestly believed that it wouldn't be such an issue. But very quickly, actually, just within like an hour or so, I felt like my mental issues creeping back from just a little bit of black pepper. I'm not saying that it's going to happen for everyone, right? But for me, at least.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually ended up feeling sick for a week from that. And that's the last experience I had with anything else creeping in, really.
And
Yeah.
and with your family, are they quite supportive of your carnivore life?
So we're just going to talk about me. I
Yeah.
guess we.
Okay, we'll move on to me
But
just now.
but I could go into it quickly. I mean, this is just
Okay.
a
Yeah, yeah,
friendly
okay.
little
I mean,
carnivore conversation, right? It doesn't have
yeah.
to be. We have no plan going into this, so. But yeah, I mean, I think they just mostly saw the huge difference in me, right, from going to being so depressed and wanting to just get out of life, right? To put
Yeah.
it nicely, the algorithms don't always like me saying it in a direct way, so I have to find ways around it to not like get shut down and stuff, unfortunately. Uh, but yeah, I think they just saw and heard and felt the drastic difference in me as a person from it, that they didn't really have much to contest, I guess. And also, my dad was already aware of like the keto stuff, and
Yeah.
he has like gone off and off that plan multiple times. He actually has type 2 diabetes,
A
but
shame.
uh and knows how good he feels when he starts
Yeah.
going low carb. But yeah, that's kind of the problem with being keto, maybe, right? That you still keep those things in that might still keep you a little addicted, maybe, or might
Yeah.
make you creep back into the old stuff. Is that something you felt when you were doing the keto stuff, that it was easy to just like make excuses or maybe get the cravings and all that?
No, but with the keto, it's just there's so much room for error, because you're keeping everything under like 30 grams of carbs or 40 grams of carbs a day. So you find like you'll start eating properly in the morning. Well, this is how I found it. And then, you develop a little sweet tooth, yes, in the afternoon, and you'd kind of psychologically find ways how you could sneak something in, like I'm just going to sneak a piece of keto cake in, or like, and the thing with keto is there's so many alternative ways for baking. You're using almond flour, which is like high in oxalates. You're using all these other alternative products, which are probably worse for you than like, say, like some organic flour, which is like hasn't been through like a million processes to get it there. So I don't think keto is always good. And also I feel the keto, and even with carnivore, people are not doing the diet properly. With keto, they think it's an all you can eat buffet. And the same with carnivore. I think with carnivore it's a bit different, but with keto you need to track your macros, and you need to like watch what you're eating. You can't just like have like a pack of bacon, and then then have like a slice of bread, because and then make sure it's under 40 grams. It's not going to work. And I think that's where people often fail in keto, because they just eat whatever they want, And I think a lot of people in keto, they also don't know about the bad stuff in vegetables. I mean, I didn't know anything about the bad stuff in vegetables, like the anti-nutrients, before I started carnivore. It was like a big eye opener for me. I mean, did you even think of these things, Jonathan? I mean, before you even heard of carnivore. I mean, what was
Oh,
your diet like?
all the toxins and that stuff. Is that
Yeah,
what you mean?
yeah,
Uh, no, I mean, I hadn't really thought of it, or I didn't really know about it or anything. I was like most people. I thought the plants were the healthiest, right? I
yeah,
mean, I remember actually where like a funny little story from growing up is my mom. She was convinced, right, like many people are, that celery is so good for you.
yeah,
It tastes so awful, first of all. It's so I hate that thing. But yeah, and I remember every time she tried to blend it in, like hide it in our meals and stuff,
yeah,
I every single time I could both smell it from afar and I
uh,
tasted it. It ruined the entire meal. And I told her, Mom, can you just stop putting it into the meals? I don't want to eat this stuff. I'm gonna go make myself another meal if you keep doing this stuff. I
yeah.
just can't handle the taste. It's so awful. And she kept trying to sneak it in because she thought it was
Same.
so healthy for us. But now I see, like, after the fact, now that I know about all these stuff, these things, all the toxins, and that, it's pretty obvious. The taste was awful because my body knows it's toxic to me, right? I'm
Yeah,
eating
right.
poison. It's just that we're kind of conditioned to think that those things are healthy, and therefore you maybe convince yourself that you like it, maybe something like that. Uh, yeah. How about you?
Well, actually, I used to. Have you ever heard of the medical medium?
I'm not
He's
sure.
like,
No.
he's also an influencer on Instagram, and his name's Anthony William, and he does the whole celery juice thing. So, were you ever on celery juice, Jonathan? Like,
No, I
there's
never had. I never had the celery
there,
juice.
there was
No.
this there was this trend a few years ago that you meant to drink celery juice every
Oh
morning.
yeah, I've
So
heard of that.
obviously
Yeah,
I
yeah.
yeah, so obviously I jumped on that, and like was sort of into this whole celery juice thing. And I can't say it ever made me feel good. And even on the keto diet, I never really felt like, wow, I feel so healthy. This is such a fantastic diet. You never really feel like you're healthy until you started carnivore, which which is something like I'm just so grateful for. You know, it's, and I wish I could actually get my kids on board to it, but I think it's very difficult in this day and age with all the temptations. You know, even in school, peer pressure. And also, I don't think it's actually fair to put your child on a carnivore diet unless there's some like major reason. Like with you, you know, you had IBS, you had anxiety, you had depression. And I do feel that with kids, like they do need a wide variety of foods, but you should lower the inflammatory foods and make sure that you're including bioavailable foods in their diet. So with my kids, what I do, sorry, you happy to talk about this? I've just like just gone off into like a
No,
new
I mean, I
world.
was going to ask you if you didn't go deeper into it because you share a lot
Okay.
about like the nutrition for kids and stuff on your social media, right? So I want to hear more
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
What I'm quite wary about with my kids is I don't want to limit too many foods. I mean, obviously I'm going to limit the seed oils and I'm going to try and limit the, you know, the fast foods and all those foods, the sweets, the chocolates, the sugar. But what I'm quite wary about is I don't want them to end up with an eating disorder because they can't have something. Because I know with my mother was is Austrian and she used to bake the most amazing things, Jonathan, like apple strudels and like these cakes. And you know, she used to say that I couldn't have any because I was going to put on weight. And they were for her friends at tea parties and stuff, which I think is like totally wrong because obviously when you can't have something, you want it even more. So I think she could have allowed me to have one piece, you know, which is what I do with my kids. If they want something and they behaved, as a reward at the end of the week, they can get like I don't know, like maybe a small chocolate, or if they want a slice of cake or something. But what I'm finding is I don't want to limit their diet too much. So I mean, obviously adding animal-based foods to their diet is perfect. And I think for children, a more paleo kind of approach works better for them than limiting everything. Because it's also hard to monitor what nutrients they're getting because they're not going to eat an all meat diet like us and get all those nutrients in and make sure they're eating fish. They may get like they may get a few nutrients from meat, but they're also going to dab into other foods. And also, Jonathan, there's also the social aspects of for a child to go carnivore, I think, are massive as well. Because I mean, you don't want them to be ostracized by their peer groups either. You know, coming into school with like a piece of ribeye in their lunchbox, you know, just that, and then like saying, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I can't eat anything from the canteen." You know, my mother says I'm only allowed this, and you know, I think it's very hard for a kid at that age who's looking for that social acceptance to go into that area, especially now where kids are so like mean to like have to deal with that. So I think a balance for kids is like ideal, where you include like bioavailable foods from animals, and you also include like low anti-nutrient foods from like fruits and vegetables. Maybe you can throw in some sourdough bread. And what I post on Instagram, it's the ideal, but it's not necessarily realistic for people unless you go out and live on a farm somewhere where you're raising your own meat and there's no other influences, you know? So that is my take. And what I do post on Instagram with what my kid eats in a day on carnivore. Yes, they do eat that in a day on carnivore, but it's not every day. It's like maybe when I can get them to eat only carnivore. So that's I'm not saying my kids are like perfect and they don't follow a perfect diet, but I think as parents we should at least try and include some foods that are going to, you know, help their brain and, you know, their bodies to grow properly and not all this sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And as you said, right, you have to be realistic with this stuff too. Because it's for everyone, it's not possible to just, oh, you disappeared. Hello. Hello. I can't see you. Are we back?
Sorry about that.
No worries. I mean, in one of the other recordings, it was actually me who dropped out like 2 or 3 times. So it happens. But yeah, back to what we're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It has to be realistic. It
Yeah.
has to be something you can make work in your everyday life. And of course, they go to school and they go to their friends and stuff. You can't even know what they end up doing there. You can't control every single part of their life, and you can't go around expecting that either. So you have to find a way to like meet them in the middle, I guess. And
Yeah.
but of course, try to find that sweet spot where you, as a parent, you're doing your best to make it as good as it can be, um, when you can control it, right? And
Yeah.
but I'd like to hear more about, because your kids, when you started like feeding them better and all that, what kind of changes did you see in them, if you did at all?
Well, with my eldest son, my youngest son, he's really not interested in meat, and it was a real struggle because he's got severe ADHD, and he's actually on Ritalin. Um, but he is only interested in eating like plant-based foods, which is actually quite interesting. And I find it that, I mean, I just can't understand how he wouldn't crave, meat and stuff. And it's Jonathan, it's actually painful to try and get him to even eat at times because he's just not interested in food. So he will eat a lot of fruit, and then I'll try and like sneak in whatever protein I can get in. And but that's basically his diet, and he just loves carbs. So it's really been a struggle with him. And with my eldest son, obviously he's like a real mommy's boy, and he's always trying to impress me. Shame, it's very sweet. But he was onto this carnivore diet at first, and he's like, I want to get a six pack, and I want to I want to be exactly like you. And it was very sweet in the beginning. But I think, and he's easier because he eats everything, and he eats a lot of meat. But I think,
Sorry, it was just my
no, it's
camera.
fine.
Oh, there it was,
I
my camera out of focus. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think
But
with
yeah,
kids, especially with kids, and especially my oldest son, he's on the autism spectrum, but he's just so intelligent at school. And I'm not like trying to blow my own horn here, but he is so like he's almost like gifted in that way that you don't really pick up on those kinds of kids that are like doing well in school. I mean, obviously they have negative behaviors, but you kind of leave it because they're doing well in school, so like who cares? But at home, he's very emotional, and he has these massive outbursts, right? Like emotional outbursts, like almost things anxious when he can't do something. So I found with the like putting more animal-based foods on his diet, he's actually better able to control these outbursts. And I try and include a lot of foods in his diet, like seafood, and he loves prawns because they contain like quite a high amount of magnesium. And as you know, magnesium helps with sort of anxiety and mental issues. So that really it really helped in that respect. Also, he used to get his lips used to get cracked a lot, so his lips are better now. In terms of mental health, emotionally, he's much better. But it's still a work in progress. And the only thing I find with children that actually really works is you need to teach them about nutritional contents and the nutritional value of food. Like you need to teach them. You need to say, listen, if you're going to eat this, this is what's going to happen to you. Your teeth are going to rot. Your blood sugar level's going to go up and down. It's not healthy long term. You could get diabetes. I mean, I don't want to scare them, but they need to know the reality of what foods are going to do to their bodies. And just explain to them that meat's got all the bioavailable nutrients. You need it for your brain. You're going to be so clever. You're going to be like top in school. You're going to be top in sport. And I think for the younger kids, they don't really care because it hasn't really hit home yet, and they don't really understand it. But for the older kids, I think by sort of setting that mindset in the beginning could really impact their long-term thinking about their health. And another thing is, I think kids kind of look up to you about the foods that you're eating in your diet. I mean, my husband's keto most of the time, but he does take the kids out on the weekends and buys them junk, which I don't approve of. But what can I do? I can't control the way he treats the kids as well. I can only like say, I don't really like that. But I think me being on this carnivore diet has really opened their eyes as well. And they can see how much energy I have and how I feel I'm happy all the time. And my husband's like, I'm so tired, things like that. So I think that's also been a big opener for them. And just to be that role model for them as a parent also creates that perception in their minds, about what foods they should be eating. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important for because I feel like most kids nowadays actually don't, or even grown up people don't realize how much the nutrition side of life actually affects everything else, right? How much you're gonna succeed in any area of life and just function day to day. And also, like you said, it's so great to hear that you've actually seen behavioral and performance like improvements for your kids. Or especially like your eldest and stuff,
Yeah,
uh, with changing their diet to a more appropriate one with like more animal based foods and all that. It's really great to hear because I feel like there's a lot of issues in schools nowadays. That's what I see, at least, with like my little brother and his peers, um, that they have such a low attention span. I don't know, they feel, it feels like they struggle to learn and all that stuff. Yeah. Do you
that's
feel
so
the
true.
same?
Well, especially when people are feeding their kids for breakfast. I mean, you're just setting up the whole day of disaster, like waffles, pancakes. I mean, when we went to America last year, that's all they served, and we stayed with my husband's sister, and she's married to an American guy, and he would take, and they quite a he would they don't even cook at home, Jonathan. Every meal is at a restaurant. And also I think America is it's quite cheap for that because they're served in bulk, and it's kind of like in their culture in certain areas. I'm not saying all, but he would take his kids out for breakfast every morning to like Waffle House. And then at lunchtime, it would be like to a burger joint. And then at dinner, it would be to a steak restaurant or so. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a steak restaurant, but it's not the steak, it's the fries, it's the onion rings. And, it's just this constant barrage of food that is going to increase your insulin and increase inflammation in your body. And these kids are starting off so young, getting fed breakfast cereals and sugar at school. I mean, there's no way they can actually concentrate. And I know, I mean, some mental neurological disorders are genetic, but you can modify a lot of them through diet. And there's a very strong connection with insulin resistance in the brain to like mental disorders. I mean, we already know that. So I'm not saying put your kid on a total ketogenic diet, as we already discussed. But what I'm saying is you can modify, and it can be a very good therapeutic intervention with diet to actually, focus on to help your child with like blood insulin levels, anxiety, even mood disorders. So I think, people need to wake up and realize as well, what are you feeding your kids? I mean, is this really good? And when I did a reel a while ago on gluten-free cereal, I mean, people think that's healthy. But when you look at the other stuff they're putting in the cereal to replace the gluten, like maize, like genetically modified maize, you might as well just give them the gluten cereal, with all the colorants, because it's not even helping. And I think for so long, people have like been brainwashed to believing in advertising companies and doctors and all these professional bodies that they don't even question the system anymore. And when they see a diet like the carnivore diet on Instagram, they think we're all mad, obviously, because we're only sticking to one food. So like I can understand where they're coming from, but people need to wake up and realize that there is more out there, and they need to do their own research as well. I mean, look at your mom. I mean, I look at my mom, Jonathan. I know your mother hasn't been well, and my mother hasn't been well like more than half of her life. And all she does is take like a million pills a day, and she feels sorry for herself actually. And I'm like, Mom, listen, have you ever thought about changing your diet? And she's like, no, I've never really thought about it. The doctor says it's fine. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you now, you should do something about your diet. And then she's like, Chantal, I'm old now. I just want to die happy. I'm like, you're not going to die happy. You're going to die in pain and suffer. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. You got to help yourself as well. And I think a lot of people just don't want to either. They're just stuck in their little world, and they don't want to believe anything else. And this is how it's got to be. And they want to eat the foods that they want to eat. And I think that's also another problem. A lot of people just don't care. Do you know what I mean, Jonathan?
Yeah, exactly. It's such a great point you bring up, because I feel like people have really been so brainwashed that because that's what I hear from my mom as well. That, or she always says like, "Oh, but it couldn't be the diet. It's just my genetics, right?" Because she suffers
Yeah.
from hypermobile EDS, like really uh, bendy joints and stuff, and can barely even sit for 2 minutes
Shame,
without having
Jonathan.
pain, and yeah, can't really move and all that stuff. Is on a bunch of medications and has been kind of conned into just believing this whole thing of, oh, if my doctor says it, it's correct. People
Yeah.
like assume that the messages you get from whatever the nutrition guidelines or your doctor and all that stuff, they just go with the assumption that the information you get from those places, like the so-called authorities on the subjects, uh, that those things you're being told, that they're actually there for your own good, which
No,
isn't
so
necessarily
true.
true, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, my sister, she's been sick a lot, and she lives in Austria, and she obviously, in Austria they have a lot of salamis, and you know what their food is like. I mean, it's probably a bit similar. It's like hearty food, like dumplings and like sausages and like bratwurst and like like all those sweets and stuff. And then she lives in a vineyard area as well, so like she's got access to wines, and she actually had thyroid cancer a few years ago, and she had radiation, and but it's like really ongoing, Jonathan. Like now she's got H pylori, and I say to her, listen, you must think about your diet, and you must think about, you've got obviously got low stomach acid as well because she doesn't like eating meat, and obviously the H pylori thrives in an environment where there's no acid because the bacteria can grow. And I'm like, well, you should think about just try the carnivore diet, you should try it. And she was like, no, I don't like meat. And I said, well, have you spoken to anyone? And she's like, yeah, I went to go see the doctor and he's put me on antacids. And I was like, I thought to myself, Jonathan, why would a doctor put you on antacids when you've got H pylori and you need the stomach acid to kill the H pylori? Do you know what I mean? So I was like, but she wouldn't listen to me because obviously doctors know more than we do. And even though I'm not a doctor, and I've just studied nutrition, but I just find it, even a family member would rather trust a doctor who she doesn't know because it's a doctor, and that's a sad state of affairs in what we live in. Even a family member would trust a doctor over you who cares about them. You know what I mean, John? I'm sure you have that with your mother. It's just so, and they don't get better, they just get sick, but still they go to the doctor. And and that brings me back to my last point, that I think that you have to want to be at that point where you're so desperate that nothing else has worked for you. And that's why I think a lot of people do the carnivore diet, because they have tried everyone else, like everything else, like you, like me, like Selena, like everyone. We've tried everything else, and we're at that point where we want to get better so badly that we try everything. And that's what led us to the carnivore diet. But these people, I don't think they actually want to really get better. I mean, maybe I'm wrong with your mother, but I know with my sister, I don't think she's got that sort of drive where she wants to really get better. She's just happy, like bobbing along and seeing what else, what other the doctors say, what else they can prescribe. So I
Yeah,
mean,
I
that's how I
totally,
feel.
I actually totally get what you mean, because with my mother too, I feel like it's always just excuses. It's almost like she wants the excuse to be lazy, if that makes sense, and not have to take the difficult steps, right? But I
Yeah,
mean, you have to really just want it for yourself, right? You have to like choose your heart, right? Okay, so
exactly.
of course it's hard to change your diet, and especially do something so crazy as to just eat meat and eggs and stuff. But
Yeah,
I mean, what's harder, doing that or like just sitting on your sofa all day doing nothing.
I
I
agree.
mean, like, and suffering from so many illnesses, having like 2 dozen medications every day. What I mean, you're gonna have to just think to yourself what's harder. But some people just never get there. And the unfortunate thing, right, like you said, is it seems like most people, if not everyone, right, that end up here in the carnivore community, we end up here because we had that like rock bottom moment where we were so desperate that we didn't really have any other choice. And
Yeah.
actually, on that point, I'd like to hear, because when you were doing the keto thing, right? What was it? Was there like a specific issue you had or specific symptom that made you realize, oh, this keto thing isn't enough?
Well, yes, I just said very, I just couldn't understand why my skin was so bad,
Yeah.
and keto was really the only diet that I had worked properly in the past for my migraines. And I was thinking, well, there's no other diet I can do because I've tried like every single diet that's ever been like invented. And I remember Jonathan, like I've always been kind of like my father, he was very healthy and into health, and he used to take like a million supplements. And I guess I kind of got that fascination from him. But I remember even as a teenager, I used to I had this book on this Vogue book on like diets. Like, remember, I don't know if you remember, but when they used to go on these wild, crazy diets in the 60s about like a glass of wine with steak for breakfast, a glass of wine with steak for lunch. And it had all these weird diets. And there's this one diet in with brown rice and green tea. And I remember I used to go on this diet for like weeks and only eat brown rice. And to this day, I can't even look at a grain of rice, to be honest. But I remember, like, I've tried like every single diet out there. Like, I mean, you can't even name a diet that I haven't tried. And with the keto, I felt it was like my last hope, and being the only diet that had really sort of done something for me. And it wasn't until my skin went really bad that I thought, something's wrong. Like, and I didn't know what it was. And I actually was, the anxiety you get, Jonathan, from not knowing what you're doing wrong, to have your health go from like just to have your health disappear. And, you know, I cut out all supplements, and I cut out I cut out everything really except fruits and vegetables. And I was like, no, definitely, it's not that. It's definitely not that. And you don't even think it can be that, do you? I mean, your story with the avocado, like you didn't even think it was the avocado or the apple or whatever. And I think people are just so like blinded by that. Plants are like, even the plant-based diet. I mean, there's for them to actually invent a plant-based diet from where we've come from ancestrally is like crazy, you know? So, I mean, that was like the turning point for me. And with the carnivore, I don't think, even now, I mean, there are often days where I'd be like, I wish I could eat normally. Well, not normally. I wish I could have like a few, wish I could sneak in a few foods and feel fantastic. And often I get jealous of people who maybe they aren't healthy and maybe they aren't feeling fantastic. But often I get jealous of people who can go on an all-night bender and have like 3 bottles of wine and never get a hangover or a headache or anything. I mean, I have one glass of wine and I'm in like bed for 3 days. And I would get jealous of people like that, Jonathan, because I thought, how unfair. And now with the carnivore diet, I don't really feel like that anymore, because it's just, you feel, as you said, you feel so great. You like don't even want to taste that wine and have that feeling that it's going to give you for like half an hour, and then the next day you're like in the bed. So I think this carnivore diet definitely is for life for me, and I know it is for you too. I'm just not going to eat raw foods.
You don't want to take it as far as me.
Right.
I mean, I'm not one of those people who think you have to eat the raw meat and stuff either. I mean, we're absolutely adapted to eating a cooked meat diet. There's no doubt about that for me.
Yeah.
It really annoys. That's one thing that really annoys me about. That's why I proactively like try to not associate myself with the raw meat carnivore
Yeah,
community, really, because all I see from them, I mean, that might just be from my experience with it, is the people I stumble upon, they're always out there with the intention of telling everyone you're doing carnivore wrong if you're not eating wrong,
really.
if you're not eating only raw meat. I was even told, I got like a comment from someone one time when I posted a video of me cooking meat. They were telling me,
Yeah.
oh, but that's not real carnivore. And I'm like, dude, I already eat raw meat most days, and this one time when I cook it, you feel the need to come on here and tell me that's not real carnivore. Like, you're just
I never get
discouraging.
any of that. That's so
No,
unfair.
it's
Totally unfair.
I mean, do it like that approach. Really, you're not helping anyone, right? You're just
Yeah,
discouraging people from doing like
exactly.
the best thing they could for their health. Most people will never go over to the raw meat. Okay, most people think it sounds
No, I
crazy
know.
and disgusting, even.
Yeah,
So, but and you don't have to. It's not a requirement,
I'm
even
just
though you
joking.
might. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I just want people to know that, right? Even though I post, or I don't actually post that often about what I eat.
I know.
Maybe because of that reason, I guess. But also, it's just not my focus. I want to focus on like the healing stuff
Yeah,
and
I
what
know
it's done for me.
exactly.
Um,
And we already know what you eat because you eat the same thing every day, except maybe you'll like throw in a bit of fish.
yeah, exactly. I throw it's usually like herring or something. That's usually what I throw
Okay.
in. If it's fish, I really like fish. I mean, I've grown up with it, and considering the
Now they must
part of
have
the world
great
I'm
fish where
from,
you are.
yeah, exactly. It's just I just go down to the local fisherman, and they just got it fresh.
Exactly.
And yeah, I don't eat
But
that raw usually. The fish,
that's good.
yeah,
Although you could, I mean, you could eat like
yeah,
sushi kind of vibe. But
yeah.
another thing I've also found which is quite difficult on a carnivore diet, which is for me actually the most difficult thing to grasp, is, and I'm sure it's difficult for you too, and a lot of other carnivores, is that a lot of our social happy times are built around food, like Christmas dinners, Easter lunches, like, family meals, and even like on a Friday night having a glass of wine with like your partner. And a lot of these sort of joyful, happy times are based on food. And I find you kind of don't have that anymore. And it's been quite difficult for me to kind of acknowledge that and to find happiness elsewhere, because obviously you can't share the food that they're eating anymore. You can't, I mean, obviously you can have a piece of meat, but you can't share, like, it's kind of, you're only eating to survive. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You're eating to survive and to heal yourself. And it's not that joy where you're having like, oh, I'm gonna have a piece of cake now. I can't wait to have that piece of cake. It's like you're eating, you're hungry, you eat, you're satisfied, it tasted good, yes, and let's move on. When you were like, when you had like family occasions with food, it was like, it was an event. It was like a ritual. It was like, have some wine. I'll have some champagne now. Let's move on to the wine. Then you'll have like, dessert. Then, do you know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah, it's
find in
like,
that,
but for me, right? It's probably like that for you too, Chantal. Is like
yeah.
that food has kind of just it's not that big of a deal anymore, right? It's not for entertainment.
No,
That's
it's
the way
not.
I think. It's just to nourish my body, and I go have my meal, and then I move on, go do
Yeah,
something
exactly.
productive, right? And a lot of people, I mean, people don't understand it and all that, and it's a little strange being around other people. But I've just found, right? I feel so good doing this. I don't really care what others think, and if the
What do
you
your
don't
friends
you don't
think of
always
it?
have to. Uh, I can get into that, but I just wanted to say something.
Sorry, I'm
You
sorry.
don't like one of the things I struggled with in the beginning, but I realized eventually is you know what, you don't actually have to always explain yourself, right? And most
Yeah.
people are too preoccupied with whatever is going on in their own lives. If you don't make a big deal of it, they really won't notice, is what I've found. And I mean, if they're curious about what I'm doing, I'm happy to talk about it. And other than that, I mean, yeah, just keep going. This is what I'm eating. I actually feel bad for you guys that you're still eating all that crap you're still eating. That, that's that's the only thought I have really in those situations.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, I wish
but
you really knew what you were doing to your body, but if
yeah,
only you actually knew. Yeah. No, I
yeah,
know what
kind
you
of
mean.
like what you said earlier, right? People who can eat all this stuff and still feel fine, but even though you feel fine doing it, right? I could go like snort something
Yeah.
off a table, and I'm sure I would feel pretty good. That doesn't mean it's good for me. And also, you never know really what's going on inside of you, even though you might look and feel good, like kind of like you, right? You felt like you were looking pretty good and were happy with all that stuff, but you still had the gut issues, you still had
Yeah.
the skin issues creeping in and all that. But yeah, onto the question you gave me, for like friends and stuff. Yeah, so I actually have one of my buddies. I actually went on a walk with him yesterday. We usually do that like in the evenings quite a few times every week, and just
Yeah.
go around having some banter and ranting about stuff,
Yeah.
whatever comes to mind. And yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to push this on anyone, right? That's not gonna work. They're gonna have to want it themselves, right? As we talked about. But I think just standing up as a good example and him seeing the changes it's made in me, I think it's actually starting to work, just that in itself.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, oh, he's starting to talk more about, oh, before I went out for this walk or when I'm going to get home, I'm just going to have ground beef and nothing else, just some salt on it. That's what I
Yeah.
have. And then no other comment, just like throwing that in there. So it seems like it's kind of getting there. So, so that's good
But
to
I
hear.
mean, Jonathan, you are so like, how old are you if you don't mind me asking?
23.
Okay, you see, you're so young. And I remember when I was 23, I was like partying, I had like a drunk every like Thursday and Friday, and like, going to this club, dancing. And, I look at you and I'm thinking, what like an inspiration, because it must be hard for you at times, not to do that and not to like do what everyone else is doing. I mean, I'm like older. I'm like nearly like double. I'm actually like double your age. I could be your mom. And I mean, I look like I've lived my life. Okay, I've like done everything. Well, not everything, but I've done a lot. And I've like I'm like, what I'm trying to say. I partied hard, and like, so for me to start the carnivore diet, it's a lot easier because I've experienced that, and you haven't really, experienced a lot of that. And I know you don't want to, but I'm sure it's hard for you at times because you see your friends doing it, and I often think this about you. It must be so hard for you. I mean, how do you feel about it?
Oh, like in social situations or parties and that
Yeah,
stuff.
anything. Like, I mean, anything. It's like, oh, there's Jonathan. He's not drinking. He's got a glass of water. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, yeah, before this whole carnivore thing, right? I did mention it earlier, I think, right, that I've been doing it for 20 months now. But before that, right,
yeah.
I was doing like everyone else, right, going to parties, drinking and all that. But I was actually heavily dependent on the alcohol and stuff, like abusing it, and I was addicted pretty much to both that and like nicotine and all that. I kind
And
of
the
actually,
snooze.
yes, exactly. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
Scandinavian, so of course
I
that's what
know.
it is.
Okay. Yes.
But uh, yeah, so for me, it was like I needed it to even be able to be in social situations. At some point, it was even so bad for me that I felt the need to, like, the only way I could get myself to go to school was if I had like a drink or something before I went. So it was actually
Yeah.
really, really bad at some point for me. And yeah, I mean, of course, you enjoy it at the time and all that stuff and have fun with people. But I mean, I wasn't feeling good doing all that stuff. And I knew all along that, you know what? I feel so horrible after doing it, and even though I had fun, but then you just keep doing it because you
Yeah,
feel
you do.
the pressure of it and all that stuff. But nowadays, I think just, I was so awfully depressed and was so awful, and now that I'm finally out of it and know how good I can feel, as we've been talking about, I don't
Yeah.
know. There's just I don't want to go back to it. And also, I don't need it to actually enjoy myself around other people. And I actually just think it's sad, really, to look at other people kind of feeling that they need that stuff to be in social situations. So I actually wish there were more people my age that saw that light, kind of, that you don't need that stuff to enjoy your life. I mean, it's actually just ruining you. And even though it's like, oh, you have fun in the moment that one night, I don't think
Yeah.
people realize how much it's setting them back in their lives and
Yeah.
stopping them from actually
Exactly.
getting where they want and reaching their goals, like building whatever they want with their life and building a family and all that stuff. It's kind of just, even though you get that short-term pleasure, I don't think people realize, or many people don't realize, that it's actually just keeping you stuck in the place you are, and
Oh,
you're
so
not moving
true.
forward in your life. So me personally, it doesn't actually bother me that much. But I always get the questions, right, about it, like if I go to social situations and stuff. Oh, why are you not drinking and all that stuff? And I just say, just straight up, I feel so horrible when I do it. I'm doing fine without it. I don't need it. I enjoy my time without it. I have no problem saying that straight up. I'm like kind of a direct and straight up person now,
Yeah.
so I just say it like it is. I don't need that stuff. I'm fine. I'm not gonna have it, no matter how much you pressure me. Um, yeah, I don't know. For me personally,
They probably look up to you in deep down inside, and they're probably like, I wish I could be like Jonathan. I bet you they do that.
maybe, I
But
don't know. I know that for me, like when I used to suffer, it's a good point actually with a lot of that, like the stuff I suffered with before. When I saw people loving life and not having these issues, I used to actually get kind of angry and I resented them, right? I was actually angry inside of me. That's why I never spent time on uh, social media and really and all that. If some like picture of someone popped up smiling and having fun, like my peers and stuff, I actually got mad seeing
shame,
this stuff.
Jonathan.
And my genuine thought inside of my head was, they're faking it just to be like popular or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it's pretty crazy. But no, I don't know. It just I don't really. For me personally, can probably be difficult for many people. Of course, I
Yeah.
understand that, but I think for me, like with how drastic the difference is from before to now, I just, I'm doing this for myself. I really don't care what people
No,
think.
that's good.
And
I know. I
the
mean,
yeah.
my husband, he drinks wine every night, and we have this little, obviously because we live on a wine farm, we have a little cellar, and he started collecting wines now. And he's like, every evening he'd go and get a bottle of wine. And Jonathan, he still asks me, do I want a glass of wine? Every night. I mean, I'm like, are you rubbing it in my face, or like, are you making yourself feel better, or do you want me to have one so you don't need to drink alone? And it actually gets to a point where you like, am I really going to answer that, or like like why would you even ask me that when I'm doing carnivore? So I think in a way people are like, I think they do, they want to be like you. They want to have your willpower and your strength, but they just can't do it. And by getting you to drink with them makes them feel better. So I mean, I think it's wonderful that we found this carnivore community, and we actually have these group of people to like motivate us every day, and keep us strong, because there's a lot of outside influences out there that can make you like wilter. And I often think if I didn't have this carnivore community, I would have actually like probably pulled the plug. you know, or like not pulled the plug entirely, but I would have gone for like a week here and there where I would have binged or like eaten whatever I wanted. So I'm really grateful for you guys and, you know, everyone on the group because, I mean, aren't you grateful that like we have this little group? It's so nice. Like even Brian, he's like the cheerleader, you know, it's just such a nice group of people.
Yeah,
Don't you?
absolutely. And it's like I've heard many of the people in the group say this, that it's almost like become my primary family at this point.
Yeah, I
This is
know.
my these people, like the carnivore community. It's become my actual real friends at this point. I speak with you
No,
guys more than people in
exactly.
real life, actually. But it makes sense, of course. It's like-minded people, people on the same wavelength. Of course, you're gonna connect with them more than people uh, in real
But
life
you
or whatever that don't
but you know, yeah,
get
sorry, I'm
something.
sorry. No,
No,
you go.
no, go.
No, it's
I was done. I was done. You go.
but you know, it's actually on my Instagram page. I stupidly made my personal page, my business page, because I didn't even think of creating another page. So I have some friends on my page, and it's actually quite hurtful that none of my friends will follow. Like they never comment on my posts, they never like any of my posts. And you know, I was thinking the other day, if I had a friend who was trying to promote something, even if I didn't believe in it, I'd still motivate them, you know, and like their posts and comment. And it's just so sad how ostracized you can feel on this carnivore journey because no one actually understands what you're doing, you know. And for me, that was like a big awakening to who my real friends are because I mean, I even had a few friends delete me, like Jonathan, and that friends I've known for years, like 20, 30 years, just because of this journey. And I think it's actually quite sad. But you know, although we've never really met on the carnivore community, I'm sure one day we will. But yeah, I just find it amazing how people can be, you know, just like
Yeah.
a turn.
What?
No, you
Sorry.
go. No, you go. I'm finished.
uh, well, yeah. It is really strange how people can react to this stuff. But I mean, of course, I understand that we seem crazy. It's like the complete opposite of what we've been told our entire lives that we should be doing for our health and stuff. And yeah, I just think if that's the way someone's going to react, you know, like you said, people show them their real selves, maybe, and
Yeah,
uh, maybe then if that's the way they're going to react to you taking control of your own health and doing what works for you, then maybe it's not someone you need in your life. I actually got like, because my page, like my carnivore page, it popped up apparently for someone I know, like a friend of mine or whatever, and they saw me sharing all this stuff, what's worked for me, and sharing my advice and insight and all that. And suddenly I hadn't even talked to them really in a while, and
yeah.
suddenly I just get this message from them telling me, "Oh, I never want to talk to you again, and I've lost all respect for you for
You were
sharing all this
joking.
data." No, I'm not joking. It's real. I got a message from someone saying this, that I've lost all respect for you for like saying people should do this. And also, I usually don't tell people they should do this. I'm just sharing to people
Yeah,
what worked for me, and like making people or letting people take what they want from it, like reach the conclusions themselves. I'm not saying you have to go carnivore.
no,
uh,
exactly.
but yeah, I seriously got that reaction, a message telling me, "Oh, I've lost all respect for you, and I never want to have anything to do with you again. It's so dangerous what you're saying." And I just wrote back, "You know what? I think it's very strange that you react this way when you haven't even really
Tried
asked
it.
me really what I'm doing or what it's done for me or anything, right? It's you don't even, you're not even curious about it. You just go and throw this stuff at me." But yeah, it's pretty
Exactly.
strange.
I think most people think it's just another fad diet and they don't actually really understand you're actually doing it for healing purposes, you know? That's what they think. They just think, oh, I mean, I can understand a lot of people think this, but they should actually educate themselves properly before they go attacking other people. Shame, Jonathan. I'm sorry. That must have been terrible.
Sorry.
That must have been terrible for you. I mean, you can laugh about it now, but like at the time, it's quite shocking that someone could actually say that.
Yeah, it was actually quite shocking just opening my phone and seeing a message like that. It wasn't really something and also I didn't send my page to any of like my friends or anything. I started without that, doing that. So it just randomly popped up. I didn't expect it or anything, right? And it is quite
Yeah.
shocking, but I don't know, my mindset and all that has changed so much that if someone's going to react that way to me taking control of my health, then you know what? If you're not going to be happy for me finally feeling my best and not being depressed
Yeah.
all day, right, and not having my gut issues, then well, I don't need you in my life. That's fine for me. Just go away then.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. I agree with you fully.
And yeah, as we talked about, like, go educate yourselves. There's so many like myths and misconceptions about carnivore. Like, oh, for example, I'll ask you, do you think this way of eating is restrictive?
No, because you don't even really think about food. So it can't be
Yeah,
restrictive. Do
yeah.
you? You
No,
know?
it's not. The
It's just
restrictive
like,
thing is all the health issues I used to have, not eating this way. Yeah.
yeah. And restrictive is being on another diet because you're constantly thinking about the foods that you can't have, but you'd like to have. I mean, here you're just having meat or eggs or butter. And so it's like you don't even think about food, do you? You know?
No.
It's just such a
Uh,
wonderful feeling. It's
yeah, I
like,
would say this is real food freedom.
no, totally. I mean, you don't even think about what you're having for lunch because there's just some mince on the stove. I'm just going to have that when I'm hungry, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I used to be this way that when I was sitting down to have a meal, right, that I would
Yeah.
already be thinking about what will I have next meal. Did you also do that?
I know. There's no next meal after this meal. This is the meal.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? I have started having. Okay, I know we have to go soon, but I don't know you have these in Sweden, and I mean in Norway. Sorry, and I don't know if you have anything similar, but I often sneak in this shake, and I know a lot of carnivores don't like it because it's got stevia in it. But it's those equip shakes. Have you heard about them?
I
They're
don't
made
think
out of
so.
they're made out of bone. So they're made out of like cartilage and bone, but obviously they sweeten them with stevia to make them sweet. And you get different flavors like strawberry and vanilla and chocolate, and they taste just like a real milkshake. So when I feel like I need like something, like a treat, I'll have one of those. And I'll send you some, Jonathan. You have to taste. I'm just joking. No, but I think they are marketed as carnivore, and a lot of people take them, when they need that hit. And I think that is okay to treat yourself once in a while with something like that, which is still healthy. But obviously, it's not the ideal. But if that's going to stop you from binging on something, I think it often works for people. Anyway,
Yeah, that's what like we need to like stop being dogmatic and like cultish with this stuff. I mean, mostly I don't think we are, but some people take it that far. Like I mean, it's fine if you want to have some blueberries or that like shake thing or whatever, and that helps you stick to the whole thing. I don't care. That's up to you. If it works, that's great. That's fine by me, right?
yeah,
And also if keto works for you or ketovore, low carb, whatever, I don't care. You're doing
exactly.
like any step towards better health is a win
I
in my book.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever works for you, I agree, Jonathan. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, since we're getting to a close here, I guess if there's someone in your situation, right, where you were before the whole carnivore thing, you thought you were doing all the right things and you actually were having some things getting better, but still some things didn't go away. And you felt like, oh, but what could be wrong? I'm doing all the right things. I don't understand. Do you have any like words for them, some words of advice?
It's very hard because even when I was thinking I was doing keto and I was on the right path, and I didn't believe it was plants and fruits. And even with this whole carnivore thing, trying to convince people that this is a good diet, it's, I think I don't actually, I've never actually thought about this, but I would actually just try and educate them on, first of all, testimonials of people who have suffered so badly when nothing else worked and have tried the carnivore diet and it's worked for them. So I would probably just tell them about stories about real life people, and also try and explain to them why fruits and plants are so bad for you. Because even when I was on keto and I didn't believe that fruits and plants, that I thought I was doing right, I didn't know the dangers that fruits and plants posed, with the anti-nutrients. But at the end of the day, it's up to them what they decide to do. And I think it's very hard to convince someone from what they've been taught. I mean, I just find it, especially with this whole carnivore thing. And I mean, what would you do?
I mean, it is, as you said, a really difficult question. But yeah, I think it just has to start with like maybe some mindset stuff, right? That you have to just be willing
To do
in the
it?
first place to no, just to like start questioning the things you've been taught
Yeah.
and stuff, and not go around, because a problem I see nowadays is people, if someone comes with like an opinion that differs from your own and stuff, I feel like a lot of people, because that's the way we've been raised and all that, at least my generation, that you already just paint them as an enemy, right? That they're like, there's no way they could be right, and I'm going into this with the intention of not listening to their side of this, but telling them and convincing them that I am correct and you're wrong and all that sort of stuff. I don't know, as you said, it is pretty difficult. And another thing is, I feel like especially my generation, they've been like taught while growing up that your opinions, they have value and they matter no matter what, right? Without any reasoning, just because you have them
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And, that
Yeah.
kind of way of thinking, it really, yeah, it really doesn't help anyone. And at the end of the day, I think just realizing that, you know what, you might feel like you're lost and stuck and just wandering around aimlessly, like on a bunch of meds, thinking that there is no way out of the situation you have, but just as you said, Chantal, like go listen to all the stories out there. That's the most important part of all this. We can talk about all the theory and all that that we
Yeah.
want, but the way we're going to connect with people is telling the stories, and just go listen to all the amazing things people have healed. And I think that alone can make someone who's open to listening to it, of course, realize that, you know what, maybe, just maybe after all, the power of taking control of my life and health and all that stuff, maybe that's actually right here in my own hand. I just have to go and grab it, take a hold of it, and take it seriously. I think maybe that.
So true. But yeah, but I think you make a good point, is that they have to want to change. I mean, that's the biggest step. They have to really want to change. I mean, you could tell someone and then they'd be like, yes, okay, I get it. I'm going to go home and do that. And then they get home and they're like, that Jonathan, what was he talking about? I'm not doing this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think you really do have to, it's you, like you have to want to change, which is the biggest thing. But I really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah,
And
definitely. It's,
I'd
oh,
like to
sorry.
thank you for having me on your show. So thank you.
Of course, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. I really loved the chat and what people enjoy. And lastly, tell people where can they find you, and if they want to like work with you, whatever, because you do coaching as well, don't you?
Not at the moment. I just don't have time because of the children. But I'm happy to help people if ever they want to ask me a question or some advice. I mean, free of charge, obviously. And I'm just on Instagram, actually, at Chantal Irish Nutrition Coach.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you so much for the chat
Thanks,
again, and
Jonathan.
we'll speak soon. And
Okay,
for the
lovely.
people watching, I'll see you whenever next time is with another guest.
Okay, thanks so much. Bye,
Bye.
Jonathan. Bye.